I barely glanced at my phone when it buzzed on the coffee table. I was half listening to the rain tapping against the windows, laptop open but forgotten. I figured it was another mindless work email or maybe a random spam call. I wish it had been. It was a text from Emily. Just a heads up, Dan. Final guest list is done. Space got tight. Had to trim a few people. Hope you understand. Hope I understand. Those 3 words knifed through my gut, sharper than any insult could have. I stared at the screen, rereading the message until the words blurred. Emily, my little sister, the same Emily I had sent late-night care packages to during her college meltdown. The same Emily who cried in my arms the night Ryan almost called off the engagement, and I was the one who fixed it. And now I was trimmed like I was some random co-worker she barely remembered. For a second, I honestly waited for another text to follow. Some joke, a gotcha, maybe even a backpedal saying, "Of course you're invited, your family." But my phone stayed silent, cold and heavy in my hand. The rain outside blurred into a dull roar, but inside everything was sharper, every bitter realization cutting clean through the lies I'd been feeding myself for years. Loyalty doesn't guarantee love. Sacrifice doesn't guarantee a seat at the table. I sat back, feeling the weight of years settle onto my chest. They hadn't just forgotten me. They'd chosen to erase me. And the worst part, I had taught them it was okay. I didn't wait. I punched Dad's number, Robert, into the phone and pressed call. 2 rings, then his voice, casual like nothing had happened. "Hey, Dan." "What's up, son?" I didn't bother softening the blow. Emily texted me. "I'm not on the guest list. You knew?" The pause was long enough to answer me. Finally, that familiar sigh came through the line, the same sigh he used every time he didn't want to deal with something messy. Like when he forgot my birthday last year and sent a guilt-ridden Amazon gift card 2 days later. Like when he brushed off the time Emily crashed my car and I paid for repairs alone. Dan, come on. Don't make this into a big deal. It's just a family thing. Space is tight. You know how it is. I bit the inside of my cheek hard enough to taste blood. Tight? I said, my voice steady but lethal. I just saw Emily's Instagram story. 80+ names. Old neighbours, ex-classmates, some guy from her yoga class. But me? I'm somehow extra. More silence. More cowardice. They RSVP'd earlier. Daniel. It's hard to uninvite people now. Please don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. A sentence that might as well have been a middle finger. I stared at the muted TV across the room, the news scrolling by in captions I couldn't process. In my head, it wasn't today anymore. It was every moment I showed up for Emily when no one else did. Every late-night phone call when she wanted to quit school. Every weekend I spent helping her plan her wedding while Robert played golf and Helen shopped for dresses. Every time I said, of course, whatever you need, even when it cost me more than they ever saw. And this was the thanks, not anger, not even guilt, just convenience. I pressed the heel of my hand against my forehead as if I could squeeze the hurt out, but it stayed lodged deep, pulsing with betrayal. You're asking me not to be upset because it's inconvenient for you, I said flatly. Dan, please, Robert said, sounding weary. Don't ruin Emily's night. Ruin it. Because somehow my existence was the crack in their perfect picture. I hung up without another word. I sat there, the living room feeling colder, smaller. The echoes of years spent bending over backwards for a family who'd rather crop me out than pull up another chair. It wasn't just today. Today was simply the first time I was no longer willing to pretend otherwise. When the call ended, I didn't move for a long time. I just sat there on the couch, my fists resting against my thighs, staring blankly at the rain streaking the windows of my apartment. The world outside had slipped into that heavy, grey silence that only early spring in Portland could conjure, a cold drizzle that blurred everything into watercolour. Maybe that was fitting. Everything about my family, about Emily, Robert, Helen, was watercolour too. Pretty at a distance, but up close, blurred, hollow, easy to smear away when it was convenient. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger needed energy, and I was exhausted. Slowly, I got up and walked toward my home office. Drafts of freelance design work cluttered my desk, deadlines flashing in angry red across my laptop screen. Projects the first once felt proud of. Engagement invitations, baby shower flyers, charity gala posters, all for people who had no trouble forgetting I existed when it wasn't useful. I opened a drawer and pulled out a flash drive. On it was the final draft of the slideshow I'd made for Emily's welcome home party, a highlight reel of her graduation, her engagement, her every little milestone that I'd helped orchestrate behind the scenes. Dozens of hours spent curating, tweaking, adding those stupid little transition effects Robert loved so much. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I dropped it into the trash. Not my problem anymore. The realization hit me harder than I expected. For the first time, I wasn't obligated to patch things up. I wasn't the family's silent fixer. I wasn't their emotional sponge. I walked back to the living room, opened my laptop, and stared at the blank search bar. Where would someone go when they had nowhere left to be? At first, the ideas were half-hearted. Stay local. Rent a cabin by Mount Hood. Maybe drive down to the coast. But something inside me pushed harder. I didn't want close to home. I didn't want easy. I wanted distance, space. A clean, snowy silence, big enough to drown out the noise, still ringing in my head. Almost without thinking, I typed, solo ski trip, Wyoming. The first result, Silver Creek Lodge. A rustic cabin resort tucked into the base of a national park. Private fireplaces, frozen lakes, pine forests thick enough to muffle the world. Perfect. I clicked through the photos. Sunset over a frozen lake, cozy wooden lodges with floor-to-ceiling windows, trails winding deep into silent woods. And for the first time, all day, my chest loosened, just a little. Booking first class wasn't even a question. I wasn't going to travel cramped and apologizing for taking up space. Not this time. Not ever again. I entered my information, ignoring the tiny voice that whispered it was reckless, that it was selfish, that maybe Emily would change her mind and invite me after all. No. I was done waiting for people to recognize my worth. I hit confirm and leaned back, staring at the confirmation email glowing on my screen. Departure, Friday morning. Today was Tuesday. 3 days. 3 days to pack up not just my clothes, but the person I'd been for far too long, the one who made himself smaller so others could stretch out comfortably. Packing was easier than I expected. I didn't agonize over outfits. I didn't wonder if someone might make fun of my beat-up boots or my oversized ski jacket. I packed what I liked, what made me feel like myself. The snow boots I'd bought last winter but never worn, packed. The wool knit hat I thought was too flashy, packed. The journal I'd abandoned months ago when the world got too heavy to narrate, packed. I pulled my suitcase into the living room, zipped it shut, and set it by the door. I could still hear Robert's voicemail playing in my head. Don't make this bigger than it needs to be, Dan. But it wasn't me who made it big. It wasn't me who chose to build a party big enough to invite Emily's old elementary school best friend, but too small to fit her own brother. No, they'd made it big. They just hadn't expected me to notice. I cracked the window open and let the Portland rain roll in, washing the stale air out of the apartment. Across the room, my phone buzzed again. Mason, my one cousin, who hadn't quietly dropped me after family dinners, grew awkward. Mason, hey man, heard about the party. Total BS. You good? I stared at the text, feeling something pinch at the back of my throat. Mason, the only one who remembered without needing to be told. I thumbed back a reply. Me, not good. But I will be. No anger. No pleading for sympathy. Just facts. Just forward. Friday arrived before I even realised. The airport buzzed with the kind of energy that usually made me edgy, screaming kids, overpriced coffee, snaking security lines. But today, I barely felt it. Wearing my thick, cream-coloured coat and the ridiculous knit hat that still made me grin, I settled into the first-class lounge, cupping a hot tea between my palms and watching planes carve their paths into the slate-grey sky. When they finally called boarding, I walked onto the plane not as someone's afterthought, not as a backup guest. I boarded like someone who deserved to be there, because I did. The flight to Wyoming was smooth. First class wasn't just about the bigger seats or the free drinks. It was about the fact that, for once, I wasn't crammed into some tiny corner, apologising for existing. The world looked different when you weren't constantly shrinking yourself to fit someone else's version of you. When we touched down at Jackson Hole, the cold slapped me across the face the moment I stepped outside. Crisp, clean, biting through my coat like a wake-up call. But I welcomed it. Better a sharp, honest cold than the lukewarm lies I'd left behind. The car waiting for me was a forest green SUV, a woman leaning against it with a big scarf wrapped around her neck. Daniel? She asked, smiling warmly. I'm Chloe, your driver to Silver Creek. I shook her hand, feeling warmth even through the gloves. She wasn't some generic shuttle driver. She smiled like she meant it. Treated me like someone worth waiting for. The drive wound through pine-draped mountains and valleys crusted in snow. Chloe chatted lightly about the area, how Silver Creek was known for healing hearts as much as it was for fresh powder. I stared out the window at the endless white and thought, maybe that's exactly why I'm here. Silver Creek Lodge wasn't what I expected. It was better. Hand-built wooden cabins framed in heavy pine, each one spaced far enough apart for privacy, but close enough to see another chimney puffing lazy smoke into the twilight. The main lodge towered like something out of a winter storybook. Stone walls, timber beams, soft yellow lights glowing against the snow. Inside, the lobby smelled of wood smoke and fresh baked bread. The receptionist, a tall woman with a long braid and a name tag that said Sophie, beamed when she saw me. Welcome, Daniel. We've got you in the lakeside cabin. Fireplace, mountain view. You're gonna love it. She handed me a glass of spiced wine with a wink. Rescue yourself first. That's what we say around here. I almost laughed. Rescue yourself first. What a novel idea. I took the wine, feeling it burn sweetly down my throat, and followed the porter across the snowy path to my cabin. The door swung open, and there it was, my new beginning. A roaring fire in the stone hearth, a leather armchair that looked like it had never judged anyone, a huge window overlooking the frozen lake, pine trees cradling it like secrets. I set my bag down carefully. No texts, no missed calls I cared about. Just the quiet hum of wood crackling, the heartbeat of a place that expected nothing from me but my presence. I stood by the window, wine glass in hand, watching the last of the light melt behind the mountains. No one had invited me here. No one had made room. I had carved the space out myself. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel like an outsider anymore. The first night at Silver Creek felt like standing inside a pocket of time nobody else could touch. I didn't even touch my phone until the fire burned low and the spiced wine warmed every inch of me. Then, half out of habit, half out of defiance, I picked it up and flipped to the camera. The view outside was unreal. Snow drifted softly over the frozen lake, the pines blurred into dreamy silhouettes. In the centre of it all, my reflection in the glass, faint but steady, still here, still standing. I lifted the phone, snapped a photo, no filters, no staged smiles, just me, the mountains, and the fire's glow behind me. For a moment, I hesitated over the caption. Something light? Something passive-aggressive, something brutal. But then the words came easy. Not on the list? Make your own damn list. Scheduled it for 2 hours later, just about the time Emily's party back in Portland would kick off, with balloons and fairy lights and maybe a cheap speech about family values. I set the phone down face first on the wooden table and leaned back in the armchair, pulling the fleece blanket over my lap. Let it burn, I thought. Let them choke on the silence they carved out for me. When I woke up the next morning, the world was powdered fresh, like the night had laid a clean sheet over everything broken. The cabin was quiet except for the creak of wood and the occasional snap from the fireplace. My phone was another story. Notifications exploded across the lock screen, missed calls, voicemails, texts stacked so thick the preview just read more. I sipped my coffee, letting the steam unfurl into the cold air, and scrolled through the chaos. First was Helen, my mother. Helen, Daniel, honey, please call me. Don't let one misunderstanding ruin everything. We were all hoping you'd show up tonight. I raised an eyebrow. Hoping I'd show up? Funny, I didn't recall receiving an invitation. Next was Robert. Robert, this is Emily's night, Daniel. Don't steal attention for yourself. Be better than that. Be better than that. Right. Because setting boundaries was attention-seeking now. I flicked to the next message, this one from Emily herself. Emily, seriously, Dan, you had to post that. You're making things way worse. Grow up. I let out a slow laugh, one that didn't have an ounce of humour in it. Grow up. The irony was almost sweet. I tucked the phone into my coat pocket and headed outside, boots crunching into the new snow. The air was knife-sharp but honest. No hidden agendas, no loaded sighs. Every breath felt like scrubbing a layer of guilt off my ribs. I spent the morning on the beginner slopes, trading awkward falls for short bursts of exhilarating speed. Sophie, the instructor from the lodge, met me at the lift line and grinned like she'd been waiting for me to show up all along. First time? She teased, handing me my pass. First time not pretending everything's fine, I said without thinking. She blinked, then smiled wider. Good. Mountains don't care about appearances. Only gravity. I didn't ask if that was a metaphor. I didn't need to. By noon, my legs burned in ways that felt alive again. I grabbed lunch in the main lodge, a steaming bowl of beef stew and fresh bread, and lingered by the fire while other guests swapped easy laughter and trail tips. Not one of them cared who I was or who had erased me from their party list. Here I wasn't the family embarrassment, I was just a guy with a second-hand snowboard and a battered heart. And it was enough. When I finally checked my phone again, a fresh volley of messages waited. This time, they weren't angry. They were desperate. Helen, please, Daniel. Emily's upset. Robert's worried sick. You're still part of this family. Robert, your sister's crying. Are you really proud of what you're doing? Emily, Ryan's family is asking why you're acting out. You're embarrassing us. Embarrassing us. There it was. The only sin in my family that actually mattered. Not failing, not hurting, but making it impossible for them to pretend everything was perfect. I opened Instagram out of pure morbid curiosity. The comments under my post had blown up. Old classmates, former co-workers, strangers from the fringes of my life. Respect. Living your best life, man. Cheers. Sometimes family isn't blood. I leaned back in my chair and let the comments roll over me, warm and weightless. Out here in the clean, indifferent cold of Wyoming, no one demanded I apologize for existing. No one demanded I be small enough to fit into a picture I was already cropped out of. The next morning, a new wave of guilt-tripped voicemails rolled in. First, Robert, if you cared about this family, you'd come home and fix this mess. Then Helen, through tears, please come back, Daniel. It's tearing us apart. And then, the crowning jewel, a group text. Robert, Helen, Emily, Ryan. Family meeting. Sunday night. Mandatory. I laughed so hard I almost dropped my coffee. Mandatory. As if the same people who hadn't had space for me 3 days ago now thought they could summon me like a loyal retriever. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Instead, I laced up my boots, grabbed my board, and hiked out to the top of the trailhead. From there, the world unfolded beneath me. Mountains draped in white, frozen rivers cutting silent veins through the valleys. I strapped in, took a deep breath, and pushed off. The board caught the slope, carving a sharp line into the untouched powder. The wind roared past my ears, clean and wild, erasing everything behind me. I didn't fall. I didn't look back. I flew. It was late afternoon when my phone buzzed again. I almost ignored it. Another guilt trip, probably. Another plea to think about the family or be the bigger person. But something made me glance. It was Mason. Mason, bro, sit down. You won't believe what just went down at the party. I smiled into my coffee, warming my hands around the mug. I texted back one word, tell me. The next minute, Mason's messages exploded like popcorn. Mason, Emily flipped. Full meltdown. Turns out she caught Ryan flirting with his ex at the party. She threw her drink at him. Like full-on movie scene. Ryan tried to play it cool, but Grandma called him a disgrace to his shirt and his promises. It was brutal. Robert tried to cover it up, but Helen started crying in front of everyone. People left. Like half the guests just dipped. Oh, and Ryan's parents, mortified, left without saying goodbye. And the kicker, your grandma apparently said, this is what happens when you cut loyalty out of your life. Right in front of everyone. I set the coffee down, letting the messages sink in. There it was. The crash I didn't have to cause. The collapse I didn't have to engineer. It wasn't my absence that wrecked their perfect night. It was the very foundation they'd built it on. A foundation that cracked the second they thought appearances were more valuable than the people who actually showed up when it mattered. I stood by the cabin window, watching the last light turn the frozen lake into a mirror of gold. In another life, maybe I would have felt sorry. Maybe I would have booked a flight back, thrown myself into damage control like I always did. But not this time. This time, I simply poured myself another cup of coffee and sat back down, listening to the fire crackle in its stone hearth. The world didn't end because I stopped carrying it on my back. It just shifted, tilted so that, for once, the weight landed where it was supposed to. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. Robert, we need to talk. Call me immediately. Then, Helen, Daniel, please. The family is falling apart. Emily needs you. And then, finally, Emily herself. Emily, if you had just come, none of this would have happened. I stared at her words for a long moment, feeling an old, familiar ache stir in my chest. Blame. Always blame. If I had come, if I had swallowed my hurt, if I had played along, maybe the party would have stayed pretty, on the surface a little longer, but the rot would still have been there underneath. It wasn't my presence that would have saved them. It was my absence that revealed them. I didn't reply. I didn't explain. I simply blocked Emily's number, then Robert's, then Helen's. One by one, like closing the windows on a storm I no longer had to weather. The silence that followed wasn't hollow. It was pure. The next morning, I woke up to a dawn so still it felt sacred. Golden light crept across the wooden floor of the cabin, touching everything like a blessing. The world outside was untouched, a fresh sheet of snow smoothing out every jagged edge. I pulled on a heavy sweater, made a cup of tea, and sat on the porch, watching the sunrise set the mountains on fire. I opened my journal, the one I hadn't dared touch in months, and wrote without stopping. Freedom isn't fighting to stay. It's knowing when to walk away. The words felt clean, uncluttered by apology. I sat with them, feeling their weight settle into my bones. For once, I wasn't writing for anyone else. Not for approval, not for forgiveness, just for me. Later that afternoon, Sophie found me near the lake, a snowshoe trail packed tight under our boots. She tilted her head, studying me. "You look lighter," she said. I smiled. "I feel it." "You staying another week?" she asked casually. I hadn't even thought about it. I was supposed to check out Sunday, fly back to Portland, return to the same city that now felt small and sour. But here, I breathed easier. Here, I wasn't the scapegoat or the fixer. I wasn't the disappointment measured against impossible standards. Here, I was just Daniel. "No rush to leave," I said, surprising even myself. She smiled. "Good. Silver Creek has a way of reminding people who they are." That night, sitting by the fireplace with a book half open in my lap, I posted one last photo to Instagram. A shot of the lake under the stars, the surface black and glassy, reflecting constellations sharp enough to cut. No caption, no explanations. Just this: some places aren't where you get lost. They're where you're finally found. No tags, no mentions, no drama. Just me, standing still while the universe spun quietly around me. Mason texted a few days later. "Mason, they had the family meeting without you. It was a disaster. Accusations, tears, some talk about you being ungrateful. Classic. Mason, you did the right thing, man. Don't come back to fix what you didn't break." I smiled, feeling the last threads of guilt snap loose. Maybe that was the point all along. Maybe walking away wasn't cowardice. Maybe it was the bravest thing I'd ever done. I closed my eyes, letting the warmth of the fire seep into my skin, the scent of pine and snow lingering in the air. For the first time in years, I wasn't surviving someone else's story. I was writing my own. And it was just getting started. Story 2, I crammed Mia's favourite blue elephant into her overnight bag, phone tucked between my shoulder and ear. "Mum, seriously, thank you," I said, double-checking the checklist taped to the fridge. Pyjamas, toothbrush, stuffed animal, backup outfit, enough gear for one night to survive the apocalypse. This presentation is huge for me. On the other end, Mum's voice floated back. "Of course, Leah. Family first, always." There was something in her tone, something brittle I didn't quite catch, or maybe just chose not to. After 6 years of helping them financially, asking for one night of babysitting felt like the least they could do. Aaron, my husband, poked his head into the kitchen, tapping his watch. "Leah, we gotta roll. Traffic's already piling up." 2 seconds, I mouthed back, grabbing Mia, her warm little body instinctively cuddling into me. She smelled like baby shampoo and hope. Mum would come through. She always did when it counted, right? The drive over stirred up an old cocktail of hope and dread. The sun slanted low through the pine trees as Aaron parked in front of my parents' house. I caught a glimpse of Mia's sleeping face in the mirror and my stomach twisted. This was for her, for our future. A promotion meant better daycare, college savings, maybe even vacations that didn't involve roadside motels. You ready? Aaron asked, squeezing my hand. I nodded. We unloaded Mia and her duffel bag, our steps quick up the porch steps. Mom opened the door, smiled, then faltered. What's all this? She said, eyeing the bag like I'd dumped a dead fish on her doormat. I blinked. Mia's stuff. You know, for tonight. Mum crossed her arms, her mouth flattening. Leah, we're not your babysitters. We raised our kids. We're done. The words hit harder than I expected. Aaron stopped next to me, bag dangling from his hand. I shifted Mia, who stirred, murmuring, Gamma! I swallowed the sting. We agreed. No, Mum said sharply. We agreed to talk about it. Not that we'd do it. Laughter floated from inside the house. I edged past her before I could think, following the noise to the living room. There was Dad, down on the carpet stacking blocks, not with Mia, but with my sister Tessa's twin boys. Tessa lounged on the couch, scrolling her phone like she owned the place. What is happening? My voice came out thin. Dad looked up, guilt flashing before his expression smoothed into bland surprise. Didn't expect you to pop in. Tessa didn't even glance up. Mum and Dad are watching the boys tonight. I've got a migraine. Of course Tessa needed a break. And of course, Mum and Dad were there to catch her, the golden child. Every single time, my mind flashed through the last 6 years. $900 a month, wired like clockwork. Groceries loaned and never repaid. Birthday cards skipped because they were too busy. My first job out of college, paying their overdue car insurance before I even paid my own rent. And yet, here we were, Mia clinging to me, her tiny hand twisting my sweater, while my parents chose Tessa's needs again. Aaron stepped closer, a quiet wall at my back. I felt steadier somehow. I kissed Mia's forehead, breathing in her baby's soft scent. Not tonight, sweetheart, I whispered. When I spoke again, my voice didn't shake. I see it now. I was never your daughter, just your paycheck. Mum's cheeks went pink. Leah, don't be dramatic. It's not about money, Dad added hastily. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. It always was. Aaron was already scooping up Mia's bag without needing a word from me. We turned and left. No tears, no shouting, no dramatics. The drive home was silent, but not cold. When we pulled into the driveway, Aaron killed the engine and looked at me. What now? I stared out at the twilight pressing down on the cul-de-sac. We cut them off. Completely. Inside, I fired up my laptop while Aaron tucked Mia into bed. The banking app glared at me, automatic withdrawals, payments, phone bills, insurance premiums. Line after line of money I gave without question. You sure? Aaron asked, setting a coffee down beside me. I've never been surer. Click. Cancelled the auto payments. Click. Pulled the plug on the family phone plan C. Click. Car insurance. Done. Each action loosened something tight inside me, like chains breaking link by link. Then I drafted the final text. From now on, you're responsible for your own expenses. Best of luck. Send block, 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 Mum, Dad. Even Tessa, just for good measure. That night I slept like the dead. The next morning, all hell broke loose. Unknown numbers, voicemails, emails, messages, flooding in so fast, my phone buzzed off the nightstand. Leah, the rent didn't go through. The landlord's threatening to evict us. You can't just abandon us. What's wrong with you? Tessa even had the audacity to text from a burner number. This isn't about money. You're just bitter because you were never the favourite. I put the phone down, calm, numb. Aaron handed me a fresh coffee, rubbing a hand down my back. You okay? I nodded. I think I'm finally free. But, of course, they didn't stop there. By noon, it wasn't just my phone that was blowing up. It was Facebook too. Aaron scrolled through his feed and passed me the phone with a grim look. Thought you'd want to see this. There it was, my mum's public post, all polished up to sound like a Greek tragedy. We're heartbroken. Our daughter, who has so much, has abandoned us in our time of need. No warning, no reason. Please keep our family in your prayers. I laughed, an ugly, cracked sound that barely felt like me. Within an hour, the sympathy comments rolled in like high tide. Some kids just forget where they come from. You raised her better than that. Money really changes people, huh? Tessa chimed in too, of course, commenting under Mum's post. She's always been selfish, just took her this long to show it. My hands shook as I read the pile-on. Not from sadness, from rage. They weren't just smearing me, they were rewriting the whole story. Aaron leaned over, calm as ever. Post the receipts, he said. I hesitated. I'm not a fan of airing dirty laundry, but they started it. They counted on me staying quiet, so I opened my laptop, heart pounding, and posted what needed to be posted, bank transfers. Screenshots of cash apps and monthly bills I covered. Email receipts for rent payments. A detailed spreadsheet breaking down 6 years of financial support. No accusations, no dramatic captions, just plain, cold facts. I ended it with, family is supposed to mean love and support, not endless withdrawal slips. Then I logged off. Aaron put a coffee in my hand and pulled me onto the couch. You did the right thing, he said, voice steady. Still, part of me braced for the explosion. It came faster than I expected. By the next day, the comments section under Mum's original post was a battlefield. Her friends, the church ladies and bridge club crowd, weren't as gullible as she thought. Didn't you just go on that 2-week cruise last month? Funny, you never mentioned Leah paying your mortgage. Maybe some reflection is in order. Even a few of Tessa's friends unfollowed her. My inbox pinged messages from old family friends, old teachers, even my old Sunday school leader. Some said they were proud of me. Others said they were sorry they hadn't seen it sooner. Each message chipped away at the old guilt, the old shame I used to carry around like a backpack full of stones. Aaron pulled me into a hug. It had to happen eventually, he said. And he was right. But that didn't mean they were going to accept it quietly. That night, around 7 p.m, my work phone rang, an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I picked up. Leah, it's Dad. His voice was strained. Tight, your mother's sick. You're giving her anxiety attacks. Her blood pressure's through the roof. If anything happens to her, that'll be on you. I closed my eyes. There it was, the old weapon of choice, guilt. But this time, it didn't pierce. I kept my voice cool. If she's sick, she should see a doctor. Good night, click. No screaming, no explanations. Just a quiet, final click. Aaron was standing in the doorway, arms crossed. They're trying to drag you back in, he said. I know. Still, it got worse. The next morning, my office security called. Apparently, my mum showed up at the front desk, crying hysterically, asking for me by name. When security politely asked her to leave, she caused a scene. Full tears, accusations, threats about how Leah used to be such a sweet girl before he got in her head. Meaning Aaron, obviously. I spent half the day doing damage control, not because my boss believed a word of it, but because it was humiliating. By the afternoon, my HR rep pulled me aside and said, Leah, if they show up again, we'll call the police. I nodded, feeling the ground tilt under me. They weren't just trying to guilt trip me anymore, they were trying to burn my life down. That night, Aaron changed all the locks. We installed cameras, front door, backyard, garage. I hated that it had come to this, but better safe than sorry. Still, even with the locks and the cameras, the messages kept coming. Texts from burner numbers, emails from random addresses. Family is forever, Leah. You're throwing away the people who love you. You'll regret this when we're dead. At some point, you stop reading them. You just delete, block, delete, block. By the second week, they escalated to Plan C, dragging in the extended family. Aunt Karen texted me at midnight. Your mother's a wreck. She's crying herself to sleep. Is that really what you wanted? Uncle Mike's email was no better. You're embarrassing yourself. Family matters should be handled privately, not on social media. Right, because sweeping it under the rug had worked so well for them before. I blocked them too. Aaron's parents, sweet, old-fashioned people who called Mia their little sunshine, offered to take Mia for a weekend so we could decompress. The kindness nearly broke me. We accepted, of course. For the first time in years, I had a Saturday morning to myself. No frantic calls about overdue bills. No guilt trips about forgotten birthdays. No emergency Venmo requests. Just peace. Aaron and I sat on the porch sipping coffee as the sun rose. I cried a little. Out of relief, out of grief, out of everything. Feels like breathing again, I said. Aaron nodded. Freedom usually does. The money I used to pour into my parents' bottomless pit, now it went into Mia's college fund, the extra savings. We booked a cabin up north. A real vacation. No last-minute cancellations because Mom needed rent money. We even toured a preschool for Mia that was a little more expensive but offered music classes and a huge outdoor playground. For once, it wasn't out of reach. I started therapy too, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to stay unbroken. My therapist, Dr. Patel, listened quietly as I poured out the whole tangled mess. At the end of our first session, she said, Leah, guilt is a tool. They used it to keep you compliant. You're learning to live without it. I walked out of her office taller somehow, straighter. They say cutting off toxic family feels like mourning the living. They're right, but what they don't tell you is it's also pure, blinding relief. 3 months passed, the texts slowed, the guilt trips fizzled out. The silence? It settled in like soft rain after a long drought. At first, it felt wrong somehow, like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, like I should be doing something, fixing something. But nothing broke, nothing collapsed. Mia still laughed, still danced barefoot in the living room. Aaron still made bad coffee and worse jokes. The world spun on without them. One Saturday morning, while Aaron set up Mia's new swing set in the backyard, I sat on the porch with a thick manila envelope in my lap. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Mum's. Aaron caught my eye through the kitchen window. I didn't have to say anything. He just nodded once, steady as ever. I opened it. Inside was a letter. Not typed, not formal, just her handwriting, shaky but still hers. No accusations, no blame, just regret. She wrote about how she didn't realize how much she leaned on me until I let go. How she thought love was something you took from people, not something you protected. How she was sorry, not asking for money, not begging for forgiveness. Just sorry. It stunned me, honestly. I reread it 3 times, half expecting to find some hook, some trap tucked inside the words, but it never came. Later that week, I asked Dr. Patel what she thought. She smiled, kind but cautious. People can change, Leah, but actions prove it, not words. I decided to test it, on my terms. We met at a cafe. Neutral ground, bright lights, public place. Easy to leave if I needed to. I got there first, sat facing the door, ordered black coffee I wouldn't drink. When Mom walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. No flashy jewelry, no salon hair. Just simple jeans, a soft sweater, a canvas bag slung over one shoulder. She saw me and froze for a second, then walked over slowly. I didn't stand, didn't offer a hug. "Sit," I said. She did. The silence between us stretched, thin and taut. "I'm not here to fight," she said quietly. "Good, because there's nothing to fight about." She twisted the napkin between her fingers, not meeting my eyes. I just wanted to say, I know I was wrong. I let that sit for a minute. "You didn't just take my money," I said, keeping my voice even. "You took my time, my trust. You made me believe that was normal." She flinched, like the words physically hit her. "I know. And it's not going back to how it was," I added. "I know." She pulled out a folded piece of paper and pushed it across the table. "I'm in therapy too. Community centre offers sliding scale rates," she said, voice shaking a little. "I got a job, admin assistant. It's not much, but it's honest." I didn't touch the paper. "I'm proud of you," I said, and meant it. "But this isn't about fixing anything between us. Not yet. Maybe not ever." She nodded, swallowing hard. I miss Mia," she whispered. "But I understand if I don't get to see her." I sat back, weighing it. The old me would have folded right then, eager to patch things up, smooth it over, pretend everything was fine. But I wasn't her anymore. If you stay in therapy, if you respect my boundaries, if you prove over time that you're stable and trustworthy, then maybe Mia can know you. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away. "No theatrics this time." "I will." We stood. No hugs, no tears. Just a simple small nod before we each walked our separate ways. Life didn't change overnight. It rarely does. But it did change. Small things, at first. Mia's college fund grew fat and healthy. Aaron and I started planning actual vacations instead of maybe someday trips. I got promoted senior marketing manager. Funny what you can accomplish when your emotional energy isn't siphoned off by endless family emergencies. I wrote a little blog post about my experience, how breaking free from toxic family expectations saved my sanity. Didn't expect much from it. Within a month, it went viral. Hundreds of comments from people who lived through the same kind of slow, invisible drain. One line I wrote got quoted the most. "Sometimes survival looks selfish to the people who were drowning you." 6 months later, Mom texted again. "Would love to drop off a book for Mia. No expectations. Saturday okay." She followed all the rules. No showing up uninvited. No emotional blackmail. No money talks. Aaron and I talked it over, then agreed. A short, supervised visit. When Saturday came, Mom showed up with a wrapped children's book, The Giving Tree. Kind of ironic, considering. Mia opened it with a giggle and asked Mom to read it right there on the porch. And Mom did, voice steady, no tears, no drama. Just a grandma reading to her granddaughter. I watched from the steps, arms wrapped around myself, feeling cautious, but also something else. Maybe not hope, but maybe the beginning of it. I still get days where the old guilt creeps in, where I wonder if I was too harsh, too cold. But then Mia runs up to me, squealing, arms wide open, and I remember exactly why I drew the line. We're building something better, something cleaner, something stronger. Aaron, Mia, me, and whoever earns a place in our lives, not just demands it. One night, after Mia was asleep, Aaron and I sat on the back porch, coffee mugs in hand, watching the stars come out. "You think she'll keep it up?" he asked quietly. I shrugged. Maybe, maybe not. And if she doesn't? I smiled, real and easy. Then we keep going without her. The breeze ruffled the trees, carrying the faint smell of pine and earth. Home, real home. Not the kind built out of obligation, but out of choice, out of love. I leaned my head on Aaron's shoulder, breathing in the clean night air. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for something bad to happen. I was just living. And that, more than anything else, was the real victory. Story 3, 15 years. That's how long I gave to Andros Solutions. A decade and a half of grinding late nights, saving deals that should have died, and quietly fixing the disasters no one else could even see coming. And how did it end? A 5-line email. No meeting, no warning. Just a blinking subject line. Restructuring announcement. I was 41, not some intern fresh out of a campus fair. I'd spent years building this company's client network from practically nothing. I wasn't just a cog, I was a good chunk of the machine. But I guess that didn't matter anymore. It was a Tuesday afternoon when it hit. I had just finished a call with Miss S. Donovan, one of our most loyal clients, the kind who still sent holiday cards, when I saw the notification pop up. I clicked, expecting the usual corporate jargon about synergy or growth pillars. Instead, it was just this: due to internal restructuring, your role is eliminated effective immediately. Regards, Spencer Carter, 13 words. 15 years reduced to 13 damn words and a pixelated signature. I sat there, stunned. The office noise hummed on, keyboards clacking, phones ringing, someone laughing too loudly by the break room. Life moved on like nothing happened, except for me, sitting there, clutching a career in freefall. Everything all right, Theo? It was Marie from 2 rows down. Sweet girl, always picked up on the little things. Yeah, I lied, forcing a smile. Just wrapping up. What else could I say? Hey, just got axed by email. Totally fine. I packed up slowly. There wasn't much. A photo of my late dog Cooper, a battered Moleskine filled with client quirks. Mr. Patel hates small talk. Donovan prefers handwritten notes, a couple of pens I liked. Then came him. Zach from marketing, the new blood Spencer was so excited about. 24, too much cologne, hair so stiff you could have used it as a weapon. Later, Grandpa, he said with a smirk, tossing a mock salute as he passed my desk. I swear, for a second, I almost laughed. Grandpa? I could still outpace him on a deal any day. But what was the point? Let the kid have his moment. He'd find out soon enough. Instead, I just zipped my bag and said calmly, "Thanks for the opportunity." I walked out without looking back. Home felt hollow that night. My apartment, normally a place I escaped to, suddenly felt like a cage. I poured a whiskey, reread the email about 6 times, and tried not to think about the 1,000 weekends I traded for this company. I opened my laptop, the glow too harsh in the dark kitchen, and dug out my ancient resume. 5 minutes in, my phone buzzed. Spencer Carter was calling. I stared at the screen and let it ring. No voicemail. Typical. I didn't feel anger yet. Mostly just empty, like someone had hit a mute button on my life. But something twisted deeper inside. Let's see how they manage without me. The next morning, sunlight stabbed through the blinds way too early. My phone screen was lit up like Christmas. 7 missed calls, 4 texts from Spencer, 2 from Marie. Andros was imploding, apparently. Couldn't happen to nicer people. I ignored the calls, made some brutally strong coffee, and got back to updating my resume. Within an hour, I had it polished and shot off to a few contacts. An old rival firm, a recruiter I'd met at a conference, and a client-turned-friend who once joked, "If you ever leave Andros, call me first." It wasn't even noon when replies started trickling in. Then the kicker, Marie texted me again. Theo, it's chaos here. Clients are demanding you. Spencer's losing it. I blinked. Clients were demanding me? I refreshed my old Andros email, still active, sloppy move, Spencer, and there it was, request for account reassignment, service concerns post-restructure, terminating contract, loyalty to Theo Donly, over 38 emails. Clients I'd nurtured for years were pulling out unless I came back. Andros wasn't just bleeding, it was hemorrhaging. I leaned back, a slow grin pulling at my face for the first time since the pink slip. Turns out when you fire the guy who built your empire quietly from behind the scenes, you better make sure your house doesn't collapse the second he walks out. By noon, Spencer had called another 4 times. The man who didn't even give me a phone call to fire me was now practically breaking his thumbs trying to get through. I wasn't in any rush. I made another pot of coffee, sat back, and started going through the job, offers coming in like rain. I wasn't just employable. Turns out I was desperately needed. Funny how that works when you spend 15 years being the silent backbone of a place. First offer, Apex Dynamics, Regional Director position. Double my old salary. Second offer, Latitude Partners, Head of Client Relations, equity options on the table. Third, my old client, Tom, offering to bankroll me if I wanted to start my own shop. I hadn't even eaten breakfast yet. Meanwhile, my phone lit up again. Text from Marie, Theo, it's getting worse. Spencer's practically begging people to stay. I laughed out loud. Begging? Spencer Carter? This was the same man who once told me, no one's irreplaceable, Theo. Business is bigger than any one person. Guess he just learned that some people are the business. By mid-afternoon, the situation turned from messy to catastrophic. Lisa, a junior account exec who used to help me with reports, sent me a whisper message. Half the big accounts are gone. Spencer called an emergency meeting. He's blaming you. I stared at the text for a minute, just floored. Blaming me? The man fired me by email, and now that his ship was sinking, he wanted to pin it on the guy who wasn't even on board anymore. I closed the message and shook my head. You really see who people are when the walls start caving in. Around 3 p.m, Spencer finally cracked and sent a text. Theo, call me. We can work something out. Urgent, work something out. Now? I pictured him sitting in that glass office, the same one he was so proud of, sweating through his starched shirt, wondering where it all went wrong. Spoiler alert, buddy. It went wrong the second you forgot who built your castle. Still, part of me wondered, what would he even offer? A raise? A bigger title? An apology? Not that it mattered. The damage was already done. Not to me, to him. I didn't need his title. I had value, and now the whole damn city knew it. That night, I sat on my tiny balcony, the city buzzing low in the background, sipping a beer and thinking it through. Apex's offer was solid money, stability, a big title. Latitude's was even better on paper, more risk, more reward. Starting my own thing? That scared the hell out of me. But it also lit something up inside I hadn't felt in years. Freedom, control. No more answering to idiots who thought PowerPoint slides and buzzwords built loyalty. Just me, my name, my rules. I didn't have to decide yet, but one thing was crystal clear, going back to Andros. Not even if Spencer handed me the keys to the building. The next morning, I woke up to chaos in my inbox. Marie, Spencer's getting chewed out by the board. Tom, you really thinking about going solo? Clients are ready. Apex ready to finalize the paperwork if you are. And then a voicemail. Spencer again. Voice tight. Clipped. Desperate. Theo, please, we made a mistake. We're willing to offer you a senior executive package, whatever it takes, whatever it takes. Where was that energy 48 hours ago? I deleted the voicemail without even thinking about it. I decided to swing by a downtown cafe to meet Tom later that afternoon. Needed to hear his offer straight. We grabbed a table by the window. He looked me square in the eye and said, "We've got 5 major clients ready to jump ship, all asking for you. Not Andros. Not some new guy. You." He slid a folder across the table, preliminary contracts already drawn up. All I had to do was say yes. I thumbed through the paperwork, feeling this weird mix of excitement and disbelief. 15 years of loyalty, broken in a click. And yet somehow I came out stronger. "Think about it," Tom said, leaning back with a knowing smile. "No pressure. But you're the one holding the cards now." Later that night, I got one last call from Spencer. I didn't pick up, but I listened to the voicemail, just out of morbid curiosity. This time, his voice cracked a little. "Theo, please. The board's threatening to replace me. I need you back. Clients are leaving faster than we can handle." I stared at the screen, 1,000 emotions swirling. Once upon a time, I might have cared. Might even rushed to help him clean up his mess. But not this time. Not after being discarded like a used napkin. I sent a final text to Marie. "Tell Spencer thanks, but no thanks. I'm moving on." Simple. Clean. Final. Then I turned off my phone, poured another drink, and opened a fresh page in my notebook. Plans for Theo's next chapter. Because I wasn't going back to fix someone else's sinking ship. I was building my own. By the time the weekend rolled in, Andros Solutions was a full-on disaster zone. Marie texted again Friday night. "Theo, it's bad. Board meeting ended with Spencer getting ripped apart. Some VP from the finance side said half our revenue vanished overnight." I leaned back in my chair, the old city lights blinking outside my window. Funny thing about empires, they look so solid until you realize they were built on sand the whole time. And I had simply stopped holding the walls up. Saturday morning, I sat down with my old moleskin notebook and sketched out 2 paths. Path 1, sign with Apex Dynamics. Big salary, team already waiting, instant respect. Path 2, go solo with Tom's help, build my own house, brick by brick, client by client. I flipped back and forth a few times. Apex would be safe. Easy, even. But every time I thought about it, my gut twisted a little. I didn't survive 15 years of silent battles just to hand my future to someone else again. I called Tom. "Let's do it," I said. His laugh through the phone was the realest thing I'd heard all week. "Knew you'd say that, man. Contracts are ready. Clients are chomping at the bit." Just like that, the first stone of my new future was laid. Monday, while most people were dragging themselves to jobs they hated, I was standing in a downtown lawyer's office, signing paperwork that made it official. Theo Daniels Consulting. My name. My terms. My future. Tom wired the startup funds within the hour. 3 clients signed their contracts by sunset. I wasn't dreaming anymore. This was happening. Andros was old history now, a broken castle already half underwater. The fallout kept rolling in. Lisa messaged again. Spencer's officially out. Board fired him today. Whole floors half empty now. Feels like a funeral. I didn't smile. Not really. It wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. About realizing that sometimes the only way to honor what you built is to walk away when they no longer deserve it. Still, it felt damn good knowing the truth won without me lifting a single finger. They buried themselves. Over the next few weeks, my new life moved fast. Every call, every meeting, it was me steering the ship. No middlemen, No begging for budget approvals. No more explaining the obvious to leaders who couldn't lead a dog on a leash. I rented a small office. Nothing fancy, just a clean little space with sunlight pouring in and a real oak desk. Cooper's photo sat right there in front of me, same spot it had on my old desk. Made it feel right. One afternoon, while setting up my new website, I got an unexpected email. Subject? Lunch? From Marie. Curiosity won out, so I met her the next day at a quiet sandwich shop across town. She hugged me like a lost brother. "You look happy," she said, smiling over her coffee. "I am," I said simply. "Freer than I've been in years." She filled me in on the latest gossip, how Andros was barely hanging on, board members bickering, clients gone, morale shredded. Then she looked at me, real serious, and said, "You know, it wasn't just the clients, Theo. You were the soul of that place. You kept it human." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. Because deep down, I think I already knew, but hearing it out loud still meant something. By the end of the month, my little consulting firm had 6 major clients. Revenue was already higher than my best year at Andros. Better yet, I slept better. No more waking up at 3 a.m. panicking over someone else's bad decision. No more fake smiles at meetings led by idiots. Just me, my clients, my future. On my terms. Spencer never called again. Guess he finally got the message. But in a weird way, I'm almost thankful to him. If he hadn't sent that email, cold, brutal, careless, I might have wasted another decade helping someone else build their empire while forgetting about my own. Getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to me. Funny, right? The day they thought they broke me was the day I got free. Now, when I walk past that old Andros Solutions building on my way downtown, I don't feel anger. I don't feel regret. I just smile. And I keep walking, because some doors aren't meant to be reopened. And some stories, they don't end. They just begin somewhere better.